Yoshi, you wanted to talk about upcoming games.
Well, you
Um,
guys were talking about them, and I was like, well, let's talk about
Yeah,
this on the
I mean,
podcast
I
instead
guess
of
we
right
were
now.
talking about the early access of Paragon, which some of us have played in one state of sobriety or another. Um,
yes.
but I think it's a good place to start with Paragon being the next sort of MOBA that's coming out. I assume it's a MOBA. It plays very similar to one, and it has a lot of references to League and Dota 2, but it's a third person over the shoulder, much like Smite. So
Okay, describe the
Yes.
game to me because I have no idea what you're talking about.
it's a three-lane map with the jungle. Heroes selectable with different abilities. Minions and
Mmm.
creeps spawn and battle each other. But it's third person with its own lore and everything. Very much like Dota 2 or League of Legends, but um, it's in the Unreal Engine and the graphics are just utterly gorgeous. I think
Unreal Engine,
Yeah.
huh? That's weird.
it is in Unreal. It is odd. It is an odd playing base to have it, but it looks incredible and it's really fun to
Well,
play.
Unreal is more designed for really, really fast-paced games. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, and
Is that
Yes.
this is where it's a lot different because it isn't fast paced at all. It is it's very civil to begin with because there's a very definite laning phase and there's jungle camps that give you different power ups and it seems a lot slower paced, but it's one of these strange MOBAs, much like Smite, where you feel very close to the action, which is what I quite like about it.
yeah?
Yeah. And the thing is, like, the Unreal Engine also, like, apart from getting a lot of frames in your face really quickly, Unreal Engine is really good at having a lot of stuff on the screen at the same time and not having it be a clusterfuck.
Right.
Um, and like the game called, I think, yeah, Blacklight Retribution is Unreal Engine, and another few games that have
Oh,
like
Blacklight.
zombie
What's the
modes have.
space one? What's the space one that has Unreal?
Blacklight. Yeah.
No
Is it?
space. What do you mean
Oh
by the
no.
space one?
There's a space game out at the moment, like an exploration game or something that uses Unreal Engine. Is that correct?
Oh,
Am
you
I
mean
correct?
Elite Dangerous? Does it have?
I
Elite
don't think that's
Dangerous?
Unreal.
I don't
Is it?
think it's Unreal.
They built their own engine for that.
I think they
Right.
did. Yeah.
Is there something that I've read recently about the Unreal Engine being
Are
used in
you
something
talking
more
about
recent?
Dreadnought? Dreadnought is
Perhaps.
probably Unreal Engine. Let me Google that. Because that's another
Uh,
game I'm looking forward to, but we'll get to that later. So Paragon, I have my thoughts on Paragon at the moment. Because even though I haven't played the game, I was able to like see a lot of it like through its development before they actually actively started releasing videos of it and the embargo lifted. Um, but like there's a very significant difference between Paragon and its closest sibling, Smite, is that Smite is a very flat game, even though it's in third person. Paragon has verticality. Like people can drop on top of you or come up from below you. Like you have to look. Like Smite has an actual option in its gameplay menu where you can lock your view, which is actually beneficial so that you don't start looking at the sky for no reason. But in this game, in Paragon, you actually should be looking in a more 3D
Oh, that's
space
trippy. I
than
don't
other
know if I could
games.
play a MOBA, a MOBA.
Yeah.
So you can cut all the rest of that
Oh no,
out.
I'm keeping that in.
Oh, well,
Please
lovely.
continue.
I don't know if I could play a MOBA that way. Do you know what I mean?
I mean,
it's very difficult to get used to, and it's one of the nuances of this game that makes it quite slow paced. Is because I think you're so wary about being ganked from so many different angles that you're so worried about it at the same time because people can
mhm.
like use their abilities to like drop stuff on top of you and there's a bit that I don't know. We play Heroes of the Storm that Jaina uses ice shards and they drop down from the sky. There's a
Uh
character
huh.
in Paragon that does that, but with rocks, and you don't realize it's happening until you look up and they're coming down. And it's a very different style of playing the MOBAs, because you have to have your retinues and your crosshairs on the creeps because you can jump around and move around and you've got to be shooting them. So it doesn't just like auto lock when you click them. You've got to be actively, aiming at them and things. It's very different.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reason I started playing Smite, was because I was kind of fed up of just looking down at the battle and not having to like actually aim a lot. League does that a bit better, but it's so slow, and like actually aiming only comes into effect when you're using skill shots and your abilities, so it's very very infrequent. But in Smite, like lost hitting requires you to aim. Using almost all of your abilities requires you to like place them on the ground and actually use your vision and your actual point and click skills to get them right. Like positioning in Smite is really important.
Yeah.
And even though you're not looking down upon the battlefield, like you need to be like really, really aware of your surroundings, and cliffs and vision in a much more 3D space than, let's say, Dota or League or even Heroes of the Storm. Even though Heroes of the Storm has a much larger viewfinder and a much better way of telling where something's going to come at you because it's all objective based. But the abilities in like Smite, particularly, have a lot of crowd control, depending on the kind of character you're playing. And like a lot of the abilities in Smite, especially the ultimates, make you actually go up off the flat plane you're usually playing on, which makes them really hard to see if you have the camera lock on. So like gods such as Thor and not Ra, Ram, have their abilities where they shoot up into the sky, and if you're at least like in a 45-degree cone under them, you cannot see them, and you can only notice them in the sky if you're really far away, because you cannot physically look up if you have the camera lock on, which most people do. So and they just rain down hell upon you. But in Paragon, you have free look, which is actually necessary even in the regular scheme of things. Which is necessary for, at the moment, I think only Muriel is the only character that can actually fly across the map and has a lot of airtime. So you can probably see her coming if you So apart from that, I think the verticality is really really important, because like if you are playing, I think, is it who's the character whose ultimate is the big sniper laser beam goat that grows across the map? Is it?
Oh,
I don't remember the
need
name.
to open it up. I think it begins with a D.
Yeah, I think it is. It's something to do with, like, because I have Dreadnought stuck in my head and I can't. But yeah, so that character is like he can get up on a cliff and like plink you down, like, because he's ranged, and if you're not paying attention, like the map is designed in such a way.
It's Murdoch. It's Murdoch. It doesn't begin with a D at all.
Murdoch.
It's Murdoch.
Murdoch,
But yeah, I think one of the crazy things about the game, and you hit on it perfectly, is I was getting ganked on Saturday night, and I was really getting really badly hurt, and I jumped off a cliff and into the jungle and ran away. And I think that's the amazing verticality.
Yeah.
You're like, whoop, off the cliff, goodbye,
And you're gone.
this is hurting.
Yeah, because
it's
not just about it's not just about line of sight. Is that you have obstructions, like you literally cannot see the person if he's behind leaves and foliage and trees, and like if he's behind a certain rock, if he goes around the bend, if he's too low on the map, so you can't really, if he's physically graphically on the screen, your POV won't register him because you're too busy in your own cone of vision, no matter if it actually shows up on your monitor, because it's really hard to concentrate on him.
It's a very different way of playing a game, like in these MOBA games, and I think it's what makes it kind of fascinating. And because they still have last hitting and creeps and experience, and they have this weird item slot thing that I'm not entirely keen on, if I'm honest, if I'm critical about it, because you can't build every hero the way you want to. You're very limited in the way that what the cards they give you. So you can either build a tank or a warrior or like a bruiser, but if you wanted to build like Rampage into like a DPS, then it's unavailable, or like a spellcaster, you can't do it like that. So I'm not too keen on that. But there is something about the game at the moment, anyway, in its current build, that is inherently fun because it's so different.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about pay gates, right? So I know we're probably going to end up comparing this to Dota 2, right? Yeah, because this is the game that we all played when we came. Yeah,
it's a game we've all played. How we met and things. Yeah.
Dota 2 has a phenomenal pay system, I think, which is everything is free, and the only things that you have to pay for are cosmetics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it like in this Paragon? Is it more of a League of Legends type of thing where you have to pay for the heroes, or is it more of a Heroes type of thing where they... Well, actually, Heroes of the Storm and League of Legends kind of have the same model, don't they? Like,
very similar. I think, but League of Legends, you have the runes and things as well that are external things that you have to kind of work and grind for. The game itself plays a lot like League of Legends. There's a lot of dynamics that are very similar to League of Legends, with the instead of barracks inhibitors, you have a recall if you press B. There's a lot of very small similarities to, and the way that the jungle camps work in, it's almost like an over the shoulder League of Legends to a certain respect for a Dota player.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I love the Dota system pay method because it allows you full access to the game, and then anything over the top that you want to do and sort of take chances on and open treasures, then you can do that. You're never limited by the fact that you can only play like 3 heroes or 4 heroes, whatever you can afford.
That's the thing. That's the frustrating thing for me about Heroes of the Storm, and this is why I don't play Heroes of the Storm on my own. I only play when people ask me to.
Yeah, as somebody that owns all the heroes in Heroes of the Storm, I think it's much more freeing when you get to that stage, but then I've been playing it for 2 years, and you kind of get enough gold to kind of work your way through it.
I had access to the beta back then, but...
Heroes. Well, I bought some of the heroes and things now just to round out for Team League. I totally understand your frustrations, and I think that's why Overwatch has done so well, where you have all of the heroes and things like that. I know I'm not entirely sure how Paragon's going to go, because certainly you get full access to the heroes if you get up to like level 7, or you can get them right now if you pay a little bit more cash because it's in early access, and get the Founders Pack. And so it's kind of this weird hybrid system of being in between, where if you grind enough, you can open it up. But I think there is enough variety in the heroes that they have given you as the free heroes, that there's some different play styles and some different ways of actually experiencing the game that allow you to draw in, and then you obviously unlock the other heroes. Whereas I think that if you just were to pick up Heroes of the Storm, you're completely limited, as you said, by the heroes that are in Free Week.
Yes, completely.
Which is a huge problem.
It's a huge problem. But I think Heroes is like, I think we had a talk about this like when we were not recording, and like the first time Yoshi played with us, where with League, right? That was that one weekend when I tried League, and I was like, okay, I got enough money after like 2 or 3 games playing against bots to buy like one character, and like their menu system is really complicated, and I think once like you get to grips with all the different variables that affect your character and your account and the runes and the masteries and everything, it'll be useful. But for a beginner, it's a pretty big wall to climb over. So I bought the one character that I wanted to play. I bought Ashe, and I was back to 0. And so the thing is that the game is structured in such a way that you have to like, you start funneling yourself into building that one character you invested in, because then you have to start thinking about your masteries and your skill point leveling and all of that, and then like even buying a different page for a skill. So like it's like buying a car, right? You have to think about the maintenance cost. You have to think about the cost of running the car, of the fuel, the petrol, the diesel, or whatever. And then like,
how are you gonna get the most from your car?
Yeah. And it's not just like efficiency. It's just that you are making an initial investment, and that money is gone for sure. But that thing that you invested in is also going to cost you money over time, right? So that's the same thing with League. Like once you buy a character, you have to like spend time doing the masteries for them, and then if you want another set of masteries for that character, you don't have that by default. You have to actually buy that separate page so that you can have a different mastery set depending on the game you want to play, right? Or if you want a different mastery set for a different character that you buy, it's the same thing again. You have to pay more money. So it's that it actually forces you to really zero in on that particular thing unless you get enough gold to like, or spend real money to buy the supporting structure to actually support another character with your masteries and your runes and everything.
I appreciate that makes more skilled players. Okay.
Yes.
But at the same time,
it does develop them.
I feel like they didn't make the system so that it did that. I feel like that's just a side effect of the system that they created.
Yeah, that is.
I feel
I don't think they planned it that way.
I feel like the League of Legends paygate system is totally designed for them to make as much money hand over fist as they possibly can.
Very much, yeah. They make a lot of money that way. It's definitely targeted at.
Scarily funnels you, as you said, but it makes you, even the heroes that you buy next seem to be very similar to your first one. You know, very similar style or role or something like that. It funnels you down to, oh, I'm a top player, or I'm a mid player, or I'm a You know, there's very little people that would ever click the full role.
Yeah, and there's no way to like try. Like, because in Dota, like, you come in and you try playing Ursa, you play like an AD carry, right? And you find out like after 2 or 3 games that this is not my kind of role that I play. I don't play as this character as really well. So you can just as easily switch over to another kind of character, and then you can keep experimenting until you find your role that you're good at.
One, or you can play,
And there is no opportunity cost for that. There's no penalty for doing that.
There's no penalty for doing that, and that's the best thing about Dota and how they do it. So that's what really works. I mean, in favor of Dota, because they have everything available. They didn't have to make it all available. This is where Hero has its compromise, where Heroes of the Storm has this free hero rotation, where it'll give you every kind of hero every rotation, even though you might not like that kind of role for that rotation, but you might like that character to play with, or the other way around.
Yeah, you might prefer that role, but you don't like the particular character. At least you know about the role and you know how to play the role. Yeah,
exactly. And like you can train with that character before you actually go into a bot match, and even you can play bot matches with other people, and they count as experience. So you can actually make in-game currency and then use it to buy a character that you might like. So it's really fair in that regard, and Heroes of the Storm is very open with that. Dota just doesn't have that problem at all. Off the bat. So.
Yeah, Dota is the I think the pinnacle one that we kind of always hark back to because it is so flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. It's the only reason.
It's just it gives you more of the game right now.
Yeah, it gives you more of the game.
And there are definitely downsides to Dota. Like, I mean, I don't think it's for everybody.
The learning curve is so steep.
It's so steep.
You know, like it is so steep. And if you're new to MOBAs, which everybody is at one point, then you have to like put up and shut up and put in the hours. And
if you're new to MOBAs, play Heroes.
Play Heroes. Play Heroes. It's a lot nicer experience to start off with. And if you want to get more intense and learn about items and add more keys to really develop your overall game for things, then Dota is definitely my first choice for that. I think play Heroes. I think Blue and I like to play Heroes together because we can get 3 games in the same time as it would take 1 game of Dota, and that's just because it's a little bit simpler. It's very much objective based.
It's so objective based. Like it's actually like sometimes you worry about like playing Dota is very taxing on your brain, and more often than not you're playing games to actually like calm down, have a good time, laugh, or even if you're not really like if you're even tryharding, you have to want to have fun because you're winning a game, or it's just an easy way to like while away your time when you're spending with friends. And Dota is not the way to do it, definitely, because
it's the thinking person's game. It's developed to really test you and really push you.
Yeah, and actually, it's meant to you just mentioned a mechanic of Dota that's just as an example that is extremely important in Dota, but if you've played other MOBAs you might not know about, and that's denying. Yeah, you're right.
Denying
is so important. But
it's so important.
If you've never played Dota, you don't know what it is.
Yeah, you never know. it's so funny. Like I was watching this one random guy. I was so bored one day, and I was watching this guy who used to play League, and he put up a video titled "When a League player plays Dota," and like within the first 14 minutes, like he searches for a match, he gets in, and in game time, like the first, let's say 40 seconds, he looks at the other guy in his lane, hit his own creep, and an exclamation mark comes up, and he goes like, "What?" And he just completely lost it. He was like,
"Why
like,
would you kill your own creeps?"
Yeah, why would you kill your own creeps? Why would you do that? Does that have a difference? How does that affect the game? And his mind was blown before he even opened the shop. Before he even opened the shop, he was out of his mind, because that's like such a small thing creates so much difference. And the thing is, that's the problem with Dota as well. Like the flexibility in itself is great for a new player, but at the same time, it's the knife in the chest for him as well, because it's so flexible.
Too much
like
too soon.
Yeah,
it's too much too soon. You can't.
I think that if you're going to start playing MOBAs, you have to do one of two things: either start with a simpler MOBA and move your way up, or start with Dota. Because if you do anything other than those two,
the depth that Dota is,
yeah, because you either have to have all those bad habits removed, or you just start off with no bad habits. You know?
Yeah. It's like if you are new, if you're listening to this, and if you're new, if you have no idea if you can actually play this genre of game, I will suggest get Heroes of the Storm. It's free. Download it, and whatever the free hero rotation you have, pick the one that looks the coolest, and it'll say if it's an easy hero to play or not if you hover over them, and you choose the training mode, and it will tell you what to do, right? It's very good. You'll take your time with it, and while you're doing that, and if you want to eventually play Dota, right? While you're playing that, when you're not playing Heroes of the Storm, watch professional Dota games. Watch the streams. Watch what the casters say. Notice what they do.
Watch Shane O'Mad, watch him and play with like Pyrian Flax and stuff is incredible, because you're watching like somebody who has Pyrian Flax has like 1,000 hours of Dota, and then watching Shane O'Mad, who
5,000.
How many hours is like 5,000 hours of Dota.
Yeah.
And he just turns every hero into a weapon. And Empyrean plays good Dota at his level. And the way he plays his heroes is good, how they're meant to be played. But the way Shane plays his heroes is the way that he uses them to destroy you. Like, and that's just the next level up, the next tier up. And it's so you really see the development. Whoever you watch, if you're watching good players or relatively new players who are putting in the hours and doing the training, you will see like the progression through the tiers of it.
Yeah. And even better, like with Dota, you can actually download the client and watch the games from inside the game. So you don't have to like stream a video and use all that data. You can actually like click on the heroes that like you can see the items, you can hover over them, pause the game, understand what they're talking about and why somebody picked up something and why it's such a big deal. Because like the caster will exclaim when somebody actually buys an item, and they'll say that it's important at that point of the time in the game, and then you can pause and actually figure out why it's so good for that character, because they will say why it's so important. But you can actually pause.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah, pause, hover over the item, look at what its stats are and what the hero's stats are, and you can see everything why it makes sense. And then because if you actually focus on a certain kind of hero in that game and why it's important for them, you then start understanding the meta of the game, why having an intelligence item on an intelligence hero makes so much sense, and why she has so much more attack speed but needs more damage, and so on and so forth, and the kind of items that she has, or so on and so forth. So it's really helpful to just watch a game and then analyze it, and that's how you learn. And then you can
pick up
go
the
on.
terminology as well, and
Yeah.
what people are talking about in game, and the terminology is a huge thing.
Terminology.
What I didn't realize is when I stopped playing Dota just before Christmas time. I think Blue and I have talked about this previously, and I don't know if it's ever come up in one of our videos that we've recorded, but I stopped playing Dota because I wasn't finding it as enjoyable for spending an hour of my life while I was playing it. I found it very tense, and it wasn't enjoyable. And sometimes you get put with people that aren't the nicest human beings in the world, and it makes you not be the nicest human being in the world, because if somebody's coming at you, you go back at them, and that's just how the world works. But I went to Heroes and I played a lot. I've played a lot of Heroes of the Storm and I really enjoy it. And I enjoy the different builds and the way the game and the mechanics work. Then I went back
Yeah.
to Dota and realized that because I knew about mechanics and positioning and things in Heroes of the Storm where you can get blown up super easy, or
Yeah.
you're not in the right place because you shouldn't be standing in that bush when all the team is coming.
Yeah.
I came back and I played Dota, and Dota was a little bit easier and a little bit nicer and a little bit more forgiving. And I think that those relationships with the games in the genre are very important.
I'll be honest.
It's how we equate how Paragon is. We go back to Paragon, which we were talking about. How we equate how Smite is, or how we equate how League of Legends is compared to these other games, is how they fit in the overall MOBA meta.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I still don't know how bushes work in Heroes of the Storm.
I mean,
well, if you see someone go in there, don't put your face in it.
Yeah. So if somebody's already in it, they have the advantage, right? Because you can't see inside the bush. That's the only thing. So unless you can scout out the bush with something else, if you have like a targeted ability, use it in the bush so that you can get vision inside it. Bigger bushes have different sections of vision. So if it's like a really long bush, you might not be able to see what's on the other side of the bush all the way because it just cordons off your vision. So yeah, bushes, smoke works the same way. And talking about like bushes and like smoke, the new hero in the Nexus, Dehaka, uses them really well for his travel ability, because I don't know what it's called, but while we are recording this, that'll date this video a bit.
Stalker. It's called
Brush Stalker. Yeah. That patch has actually gone live right now, and Squadron is streaming him right now. So Dehaka is live, and
well done, just dated the video.
What are you talking about? We're recording this on April 3rd.
Sure.
This is definitely the 13th of September, 2018.
2018, yep. We're recording from the future. We already know what's happening, so we're cheating a bit. Give us your money.
The future.
Yeah. So that's really important. But yeah, that's how MOBAs.
I think that they all have their own unique mechanics, which is what makes them all individual games, right?
Yeah.
I think that people have the. It really depends. It's such a personal choice, and I think that's what's nice about it. But as long as it's a personal choice, and we go back to this, that you end up making friends and enjoying it with your friends, because it's so important to have friends in these games, because they just make it 10 times better. At least
make it so much better. Yeah.
And this is why everybody's solo MMR is lower than their party MMR in Dota.
Yes. Always.
Yeah, very much. It's not as enjoyable. It's not. You don't get the same experience of the game. I mean, if you were to throw somebody who had never played the game before in an MMR bracket, the poor person would think it would be the worst game in the world. It would be so scary and so different. But that's why you have your almost talent gates, where you have to do so many hours or so many games before you can play it, which is a good idea by Dota, because it's so difficult to learn, so difficult to play, and you will get one game in 5 that is just rewarding because you did something right and it all worked out and you won, or you did something right and it all worked out but you lost and it was tense right at the end.
You say that, but I played Dota with Alec and Wuju last night. We did like 6 games. 4 of them were ranked party games. I ended up calibrating. And I calibrated. I want to talk about that before we stop talking about MOBAs. But
yep.
The every single one of them was the most fun I've ever played Dota before. I don't know what happened. It just was.
It was, because the thing is, like, with Dota, it's more about acceptance. Like, there's 2 stages where this is a bit of like my graduation coming in, where it's called emotional intelligence, where you have to accept that you're at a certain level in Dota. Like, you are not good at a certain thing, and if you are forced into a position, if you're playing random draft or ranked or something like that, where you don't have the choice of the full gamut of heroes to pick your strongest part, and even then you might not be as good as somebody else. Your item build or your progression or your sense of the game or the map and the enemy presence in general is not up to par, or much higher or much lower than somebody else. So you have to actually know yourself, where you stand, And then your team has to know where you stand and where they stand in respect to you. And it's just accepting the acceptance on both sides. When it matches really well, it really comes together, because then you can actually joke about you not being as good, or you being better than somebody, and it not being affecting, because then everybody's compensating for everybody else, and that's when the synergy comes. Dota as a team winning in that game doesn't come from everybody being good. It comes from everybody knowing how bad everybody each person is, and then playing around it, and then using it to play with the other team's head, because the other team will obviously notice when somebody on your team is not good, and you have to capitalize on that shit. Because if they're going to go after somebody, you have to set up an ambush, and if somebody on your team is really strong, you can use them to drive them into positions where they don't want to be, and then use it as a tactic. So the level of Dota is so good. And like last night, I was not in that game, but I was listening in, and like, yeah, that's what was happening, because like Wuju and Alec and you guys, you knew where each of you standing in terms of skill and hours played, and in this TeamSpeak in general, people recognize where people are and what people play well and not so well, and that's how it works really well, because the synergy is there. People recognize how they are in the game, and then that's how the game gets better.
That's developed by playing with and spending time in.
Yeah. So, I mean, getting back to Paragon, like Yoshi's original question was the pay gate position. And I think if Paragon is going the route, I think they are with selling the card packs that you get as upgrades to your items and what you want to do with it. It's the cards. So if that's what they're going to do, I'm very worried.
Yeah, I am too.
Because that directly affects the gameplay of the actual match that you're playing. Because if somebody spends money on cards and they get all the good cards, and then they're obviously someone you don't want to mess with in a match.
Yes, and this starts going into the land of pay to win, which a MOBA should never ever
never go. Yeah. So if they get cards, and even if they randomize like the opening of a pack of cards, or like a case, or whatever they want to call it, it's still to, like, even with chance, the more money somebody is willing to spend on that game, the more chances they have of getting better cards, or just having more cards will get them just a bigger arsenal to play with. So there's that. And my biggest worry is that to how big of a degree is a card going to affect the game, because if they actually want to put value in the card system, the cards have to make sense. You can't have trash cards in people's hands, because people will just not care about cards anymore, and then they will eventually drop the game because they can't augment their characters enough. This is not a problem with Paragon at the moment, because it's so limited, and it's still like developing new characters to play with, and like the cards are not even done yet, like the art is not finished. So they have still time to fix this. But I'm worried about them, because there's one game that is still in beta, and that is doing this horribly wrong, and that's Paladins. And I'm in the beta for Paladins, and apart from the heroes themselves, the champions that they call them, being completely out of whack, they are so imbalanced at the moment, and they've promised to fix them now as the patches come along, as and when. But they're so imbalanced on their own. Plus, the card drops are so random, and they're so over the top that if somebody actually gets a really good card for a certain hero, it's just unbelievable to just kill them. You can't work around that strategy anymore, because then they keep playing that character into the ground. Yeah, the cards are augmenting the gameplay way too much, so that if somebody has a card that you don't, or they just have a really good deck for a certain character, they are way too overpowered. Even though if you're
they just take over the game far too much, and you're talking about players that are like characters that are not necessarily in the carry role either. You know, they're not like super weak, but they need to be protected. You're talking about, they have a health buff, their ultimate is on 20% less cooldown, and they have, they have an escape, so they get longer with the escape, and it lasts longer. You're right, it takes over the game too much, and it's
too much.
A little bit frustrating.
Yeah. And the cards there in that game are going to be monetized. You can buy card packs, and that's going to be super pay to win if the card system stays the way it is right now. And that worries me about that game, because that's like one of the competitors to Overwatch, which is going to be like pay to get in. Like you pay up front and you have everything for free.
Yeah.
There's no limitations.
I know.
So I mean,
I'm so looking forward to Overwatch. As a massive Blizzard fanboy, I just it's so exciting. It's
so
going to
exciting.
be finally available, and I'm just so looking forward to it. And the way the game is played, and the way it looks, and its background, and the amount of effort they're putting into it. Just really, really looking forward to it, because you know they're going to do it right, and they know they're going to do it justice visually anyway. It's just just hope.
I can't wait for the day one crashes.
I think Blizzard has finally gotten themselves into a position where we can trust them with games. Like, I think back in the day, I know that's a really controversial statement, right? Because they've been doing games for longer than most companies have even existed. But I think that they've made mistakes. And
huge ones.
Yes. And pretty recently.
I mean, they turned one of their biggest game into a mobile game by accident. With, you know, the Warlords of Dreadnought, your like daily quests, and you're like having to go around. They turned it into what they thought was going to be very popular, and to a large extent it was, but it turned it into like a Facebook game of World of Warcraft. And you're absolutely right. They've made some mistakes, and they've tried for too long to stay to World of Warcraft and stay true to it, which is completely fair because it's such a big IP. But
I think it was
important
important
to be more progressive earlier.
Yeah, it's cool in the World of Warcraft context to stay true to World of Warcraft. But I think that they focused a good 10 years exclusively on content for World of Warcraft. You know, and that was a huge strain for them. I think with their release of Diablo 3 and Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm, they've kind of proven to us that they finally are back and they're able to do what we need them to do. Do you know what I mean? And I think with Overwatch,
they're just
finally
more
people are
than
like
World of Warcraft.
Yes. And finally with Overwatch, people are like, all right, they've done these things right. Now we trust them. Give us a good game, you know?
Give us another good game and things. And I think that, you know, Heroes of the Storm is an ongoing thing, and it will require work, and they will refine it, and it might need eventually a new engine, because it's while it's big and stable and it's doing exactly what it says in the tin currently, they might need to update it in the future. But I think they're perfectly in the right place for, you know, just doing more and being more available to people who don't necessarily just want to play World of Warcraft. And it's something we haven't mentioned here is Starcraft, and how big it was, and how big it still is in some circles, but it is just not.
They really dropped the ball on StarCraft 2.
Yeah, it's just fell off a little bit, and it's just a little bit dated now. And while the new single players are very good, and the story is really rounding out, really is what they're doing. They're rounding out the story.
They just want to be done with it.
It's just coming to an end, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't they began really well really long ago, and then they messed it up. And then they messed it up again, and then they were like, okay, now we have to finish this. And then they were like, okay, now we're done, let's do something else.
You were talking to somebody here who spent like 7 years of his early life playing StarCraft. Like, that's what I did. I had a clan, I played
so sorry for you.
Ladder matches. I'm talking about the original StarCraft, so StarCraft Brood War. So I spent probably a good 6 years playing StarCraft. So you're talking to somebody who... They hyped up StarCraft 2 so much. It was for like 6 years before it came out. They were saying, we're making this game. It's going to be great. We're making it. It's going to come out. You guys are going to love it. But I actually, as a kid, because I was like 12 years old when they first announced this stuff, I didn't know any better. And I went to Best Buy and tried to find StarCraft 2. This is how hyped up it was. And I was young, so I didn't know any better. I didn't realize that they hadn't released it yet. And the guy was like, we don't have any game called that. I'm like, oh.
Of all places, you went to Best Buy.
It's one of the only electronic stores that I had near me at the time. But
all right.
So we were really expecting something that was true to the series, you know? And they kind of just picked up in this random place with Wings of Liberty. Like, they didn't... It didn't follow the story of Brood War. It technically was after the story of Brood War, but it didn't really have anything to do with Brood War. And it was like, okay, I'm Raynor, cool. Oh, I'm in this place. All right. Now what's gonna happen? And then fucking random shit happened.
Yeah. It was so random. I remember even between like Wings of Liberty and Heroes of the Heart of the Swarm, it was so random. Like all of a sudden, Kerrigan goes, "Yeah, I'm gonna be a bitch this game."
Yeah.
Like what?
What happened?
Yeah,
like you used to be under the control of the
like
Overmind.
Yeah, it's
just
like I don't know. It's like they had like an ideas department that was just like,
it's like they had
get the ideas in, quickly, ideas.
She had an excuse when she was a Zerg before.
Yeah.
She had an excuse. Basically what happened was she got kidnapped as a Terran. She got turned into a Zerg. And then the Overmind had full control over her. The leader of the Zerg had full control over her, perverted her head, made her think that what she was doing was good. And when she got turned back into a Terran, that should have gone away. But it didn't. And she has no excuse after Wings of Liberty. She has no excuse for being a bitch. Like, it's all her. She has
no excuse. Yeah, it was supposed to be the Overmind's fault. But apparently he was the one who was actually taming her, but then she was actually such a bitch, and she was so knowledgeable about the Zerg and the primal Zerg and all of that stuff, and then she became an absolute bitch.
Yeah.
And then comes the clusterfuck. That was Legacy of the Void when it comes to the story. Holy shit.
I have to sit back for this one. Hold on. My demon bed is going to make noise.
Incoming.
Alright, we're good. Go on.
Blood for the blood god. Okay. So Legacy of the Void. I haven't played it, and like what I've seen of the gameplay, like the gameplay and the maps and like what they did with the mechanics was really interesting. The reason I want to buy that expansion is so that I can play the campaign just because it plays so well and there's so
skip
much
all the cutscenes and play the campaign.
Yeah. And but what I did was, because it was such a new game at the time, it was costing me $60, and I was like, hold on a sec, because I got into Starcraft because of the story in Wings of Liberty, and that's the original expansion I bought. And then I was lured into the false sense of security, and then I bought Heart of the Swarm off the bat, and that was a big mistake. So I was like, okay, so I had bells ringing in my head, like giant gongs from the monasteries were going off. I was like, hold up, they've screwed it up before. Why don't you watch somebody make a game movie out of this? So I got on YouTube and I watched this 3-hour something video. I don't remember how long it was, but it was this guy who just knitted all the cutscenes together with like the necessary gameplay points in between where there's dialogue.
Man, you said knitted them together, and I was imagining him really knitting them.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I was like,
it was so hard to like, and oh my god, did this grow. And the thing is, like, I was like, okay, I knew the story was going to be shit because of the last 2 expansions, so I didn't really expect much from the story. I really hoped that the ending would have been like a definite, logical, at least sensible, like something that made sense what happened. But it looked so. It was like they wanted to rid themselves of the story.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was so
they
badly
just
ended because like
end.
They just wanted it to end because
they
were like,
just wanted to kind of round it all out, didn't they? Really?
Yeah, like Amon was absolutely bitch slapped the whole fucking series. He like the enigma of the location of where I forget what they're called.
Zelnaga.
The Zelnaga used to be was an absolute shitstorm because like apparently it was just in this place that nobody just wanted to go, and then it was like, yep, let's just go, and like armies of all 3 fucking races just shows up at the doorstep of the fucking.
Well, the point of that, the point of that was that the reason Amon got bitch slapped all the time was because the reason Kerrigan went primal, quote unquote, is because she needed that to kill Amon.
Yeah.
Like that was her plan the entire time, was to kill Amon using her primal powers. So I feel like that's kind of okay and forgivable because we kind of built up the entire second expansion pack based on this entire pack is building the ability to kill Amon.
Oh yeah. And then the Protoss just goes, yeah, we don't need our tendrils anymore, so we just cut them off. So they just it's like, okay, because Artanis said so, let's trust him, and then everybody just cuts loose the one thing that was the most important to them.
It's like cutting your fucking ears off. You don't do that. Like,
yeah, it's like, and it's not just if it was just cutting hair, it would have made sense.
Ah, well, Zeratul didn't need them, so we don't need them.
Yeah, I'm like, you just lost everything you had. I'm like, fuck me. Okay, and then maybe
and then they did the pre-sequels and things.
Yeah, and then the ending, like the ending cutscene. All right, they get into this huge double prism thing. All right, they get in, and for no reason whatsoever, the portal is really huge. All right, inside that prism thing, but only these three stupid idiots walk in. They have fucking fleets. They have armies waiting outside that can go against Amon. But no, only these three go in because, of course, dramatic effect.
Or throw a nuke through. Fucking hell.
Yeah, and the thing is,
exactly.
Throw a nuke through it.
Like anything but face check it. He could have just been sitting on the other side with a giant cannon, just be like, cool.
Hey,
boom.
guys.
Yeah, and the best part, they walk through onto a random rock in the middle of nowhere. And of course, Amon's not there, but the Xel'Naga Amon has been looking for this whole time, like years, centuries. He's been looking for the fucking.
He just happens to be like taking a trip down memory lane at the portal to the Xel'Naga Palace.
Yeah, he's just right in front of the portal, and Amon missed him. What the fuck is happening? Amon has been. He's actually in the same place.
Welcome.
Good evening, travelers. What the fuck is happening?
Ho ho ho, traveler.
Yeah.
Thank you for finding the Staff of Magnus for me.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Fucking glorious Sips moment happens. And he just is like, okay, then, yeah. And then he just goes, like, he then has his nice divine moment of explaining to Kerrigan that she's the one who's supposed to kill him. Like, duh, we knew. But then what happens is then, like, before even before all that bullshit, the fucking cutscene is so shit. The quality of that cutscene is so shit. They could have easily, like, you can tell that cutscene should have been made, like, pre-rendered and should have been high quality like the ones that they had before. But no, they made it in-engine for some fucking reason. Like, an entity as important as the first time you see a Xel'Naga should have been a pre-rendered high quality cutscene. But no, they did it in-engine. And it was so low quality. It was so shitty. It was so bad. Like, oh my god, it was so bad.
Yeah.
And so he just tells, like, Kerrigan, yeah, like, you're the one destined to, like, kill Amon. And then he goes, you're supposed to take the place of me, like me, the Xel'Naga. And then you go like, oh, so, like, you start formulating in your head that no, she has to give up her pristine biological form to become this huge ugly thing with tendrils. And then the fucking thing happens, and then she turns into this golden angel. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, any semblance
I don't know.
of continuity or anything. Like, she should be a fucking hideous monster right now, but no, she turns into golden angel because fuck.
And then,
story.
And then the end, right? The end.
The end.
The end was like, just, okay, we know everybody.
Then anyone shows up.
Look, wait, everybody's, they're like, okay, that's the end. And they're like, wait, no, hold on. Raynor has to get the girl.
For anybody that doesn't
Spoilers. Even before that, the way she kills Amon is the worst fucking thing. She just looks at him and then she pulls a Marvel Ultron move on him, and she just goes, I'm just gonna stare at you and you just disappear. I'm like, it was just, at least give us an epic fight. Holy shit. She just stares at him and he just blows up.
It's so weird. It's
so bad.
Like, lackluster and
it's like, we gave you years for this, and this is the shit you give us. Holy shit! I mean,
the game is still fun to play. Don't get me wrong.
The game is fun to play, yeah.
But it doesn't have the same impact when you're, like, moving through it like it did.
Yeah, and then Yoshi do the honors for what happens after.
World of Warcraft is still. I mean, it's same reason that World of Warcraft is still a fun game to play. It's just everybody's kind of done it and done all the missions and kind of got through it, that it's no longer the same impact.
Yeah, it's no longer the same impact. And yeah, before Yoshi goes for the last scene, this is still rendered in engine. This is not pre-rendered. This is still shitty quality. All right.
At the end, it's like the idea guy sat down. It's like, okay, like there's a guy, right? He's got all like the boards drawn out in the. I'm painting a scene for you. They're in a conference room. Okay, the story guy is pitching the story of Legacy of the Void to the CEO. Okay, and he's like, and that's the end. And the CEO goes, wait. No, Raynor has to get the girl, right?
Meanwhile, you can hear in the background in another room, Jeff Kaplan is swimming in his money.
Raynor has to get the girl. That's the point of StarCraft.
Give us one hook. And they're like, okay. And then this fucking cutscene happens.
Oh my
where
God.
it's still in engine, right? It's still, and this is literally the same in engine rendered cutscene that you have in Heart of the Swarm, where Tychus walks in the beginning and says something to Raynor, right? And it's the worst thing because like instead of that happening,
it's about time.
Yeah, that's an actually good quality cutscene. Like that's an actual pre-rendered cutscene. But this is the one where Raynor's sitting there having his drink, and then the door opens to the bar, and Tychus walks in through the storm. But instead of Tychus walking in, it's just this glorious, beautiful, obviously fucking Paragon walks in, and then they just walk out into the sunset in the middle of the fucking storm, mind you. There's a fucking sandstorm going outside. And they just walk out. And
don't worry, my mighty quips of Jim Raynor will protect me against the sand woman.
Yeah. And like 10 minutes ago, before the credits rolled, you know the fucking golden angel in the other fucking dimension cannot travel through dimensions because she is Zelnaga. She can literally only inhabit this place to create life and go back. She can't go onto the planet, get a physical form, and get her boyfriend back out. What the fuck is that? Oh my jeez! I'm not even Catholic.
So I've put a link to the cutscene in the show notes. Everybody can look at it there.
Yeah. That's a great idea, because if you don't know what we're talking about, you're not going to get it. But if you do have a little inkling to what we're talking about, then you might understand our frustrations behind why we churned a lot of money into a game and we enjoyed playing the game. It's one of these ones where the story just sort of faded away. It's incredibly just sort of faded into, we've got to keep making these games because they're popular.
Yeah,
we've got to come up with a story and round out the story because some people like playing the third faction, so we better make them have a one.
Yeah.
And they killed StarCraft forever.
They killed it. You can't. I'll never go back to the story again. Never.
But they will, because they've now got like the Nova area thing that they're now doing. The next missions are available.
Yeah, the covert ops. Yeah, I'm not really. Fuck that.
It's like they wanted to kill StarCraft.
Yeah, probably did.
I feel
maybe,
I mean, it's been around a long time.
Yeah.
So is Warcraft.
And the thing is, you know what the fucking CGI team was doing when StarCraft's ending was being made, because like that's the only reason they didn't do the pre-rendered scene was because they were fucking doing the fucking CGI for the new Warcraft expansion, and which was so good. And that's what they were doing. And then after that, they did the fucking
like the Sylvanas one on the boats in the air. And
yeah.
That
was definitely the one that they were doing. And after that, they still didn't have time to at least like do something like at least like a 10-second, at least the ending scene to be pre-rendered when like the ridiculous she walks in and takes him away. They did the Overwatch CGI. Animated short. That's what they're doing.
And it's like, I don't think they actually made that much money on StarCraft, probably. That's what it comes down to, probably. I mean...
Yeah, I guess, because it is a one-time buy thing, and they gave out the first few missions as a trial.
I will say this. I mean, we've bashed StarCraft 2, and where it's a game that we've all spent a lot of hours playing or whatever. But they rescued Diablo. Let's go the
They
opposite
did.
way with this.
Definitely. I think we need to accept that Warcraft is dead for sure. Warcraft is not coming back. There's not a chance.
It's not. You mean Starcraft?
No, I mean
But
Warcraft.
they've brought back all of the bad guys.
Yeah, I know. I'm talking about the original Warcraft series. I'm not talking about World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. No,
Warcraft.
I'm not. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
Warcraft is dead. They're not going to be able
1, 2,
to bring
and
that
3.
back.
Yeah.
Well, I hope not.
I don't think
I
they're gonna
hope
do
They
it.
managed
just
to
leave
bring
it
back
as a part
Diablo,
of the
which is
legacy.
good.
Yeah, they saved Diablo. They did a good job. I mean, I literally cannot afford to buy a Reaper of Souls at this point, or I would. But at the same time, it's so daunting now that they've added so much into the game that even when I'm replaying the game again in the European region, because I bought it when I was in the Americas. So I have a monk called Snugglefluff, and he's doing really well. So I'm leveling him up. He's at least level 25 now, I think. So I'll be getting to Paragon really soon in the next 2 days. So, and the amount of things that they've added, like trinkets, they've added different kinds of damage now. And the gem thing was already there, but now they've added augmenting the gems and stuff. It's just so much. And then they have different modes. They have seasons. They have adventure mode. They have, I mean, I can't, like, I've completely shut myself out and I just play the campaign without any frills. And I can't even begin to, like, do the season stuff, the adventure mode stuff, and let alone getting Reaper of Souls and playing through that campaign. So, I mean, I'm just overwhelmed by what it has to offer without even, like, doing anything. It's just such a good game now for anybody who hasn't, like, done anything like Diablo before. And it has the cash to drop on it. Get Diablo and play it. You'll have a fun time.
There was one more thing I wanted to talk about in this podcast, and that was No Man's Sky.
Oh, yes.
Is everybody looking forward to it? What do we feel about it? What have we read about it? What have we heard? Because I am so looking forward to it. I think it's going to be crazy fun.
Well, there's this thing that everybody keeps sharing, and it says, oh, No Man's Sky has 10 trillion procedurally generated worlds, and it would take the entire human race 10 years to explore it all if we all did 500 worlds per minute or something like that. And that may be technically true, but I think that you also need to include that there may be that many worlds procedurally generated, but they're not all different, you know? A lot of them have similar traits. Do you know what I mean? And I am really excited for No Man's Sky. So. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I'm extremely excited for it. But I think that you're overselling it a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think they've kept quiet after that point. I
think so. And when they released the bit about all they having to use like bots to go and like map bits of it and
which is really cool, by the way.
I just think I am more... it's really clever and really incredible. I just think I'm more excited about you land on a planet and it may be really inhospitable, or you land on a planet and it might be, like, really rare stuff, or you land on a planet, like... It's just the chance of things happening on these planets and being the kind of, the explorer that you kind of want to always kind of be, but you can't be anywhere else in games anymore because the world has been heavily explored. But it's gonna be fun, I feel.
I believe it'll be absolutely fun. It's a great thing for streamers who want to, like, just sit around and, like, just play and then have, like, the audience just explore the world with you, and it's good for that. But again, being the person I am, I'm worried for them, and I have reasons for this. Go
on.
The first of which being that it's more like games have always been fun with a friend or friends, and they have not talked about having the ability to party up and explore the world together with a certain person. So that would make it so much better, in my opinion, because landing on a planet alone and exploring, like, they've given us this huge number as to how big the world of No Man's Sky is, right? And
18
they have said nothing. Yeah. And it's so huge, and being the only person, like, you obviously are not, and, like, you might run into other players that are playing, and there's a chance of that. But what if you don't want to do it alone? how do you like? Why would somebody want to be so lonely in such a huge world? Like, what if a couple wanted to play that game together, explore the world together? Is that a possibility? Like, they haven't said anything about it, and the game is pretty close to release, and I don't know if they have that capability to add that in the game, or if the game just does not support it. Because if not, a lot of people might not buy that game. Because exploration on your own is good enough, but you will get bored of it eventually.
Yeah.
And if you can't do it with somebody else, unless you're streaming the game, it will get very lonely very quickly. Because there's only so much new stuff that'll make you want to go forward and find the center of the universe. And if you can't give the person a map, because then they can just go beeline for the center.
This is the problem with games that use that as a mechanic, like Spore,
Yeah. That's one of my worries. The other worry
there is a giant atlas, though, right?
There is a giant atlas, yes.
But I think it's generated as you explore it.
Yeah, right? So you don't have any context for where you are.
Yeah, but there is an atlas, and you upload to the atlas. That's another thing, and one of the things they're doing, though, right? And you upload to this online atlas.
Yeah.
Where you found, and you're exploring, and it adds on to other people's one, and you kind of start to see like a.
Now my question is, you're saying there's no multiplayer planned at all?
There is a thing where they did mention that you can, like, it is absolutely possible to run into somebody else on a planet. So there's a huge possibility that you will land on a planet and you will find somebody else's spaceship land there. But that's a very huge, like, very rare chance, because first of all, you have to find the same planet, and even on the same planet, you have to land on the same spot or near the same spot.
You want them to add a way to start with somebody.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or like just party with them to explore with them and jump with them and
Yeah. Yeah, jump with them. Or here's the thing, like, even if you, because the objective of the game is to explore and find the center of the universe. That's how they've pitched it. And even if you have friends on your Steam list and they're playing No Man's Sky, they're in a certain part of the universe that you don't know, and even they don't know, and you're in a certain part of the universe that either of you don't know, because you don't have context, because that's the Atlas. But if you're partied up and you can maybe set a direction, coordinate, do something. But so here's the thing, like, that's the huge problem with that game. If you are all on your own, it'll get really lonely really quick, that game.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how much content you give that individual person, you need to give them
it's
company.
It's almost like if you were to play, Minecraft on offline mode alone. Like it's you can play it, but you're never gonna get the full experience if you don't play with other people.
Right.
Yeah. That's.
I mean, you will get the full experience for No Man's Sky because this is the way it's been designed. But I feel like it's limiting itself by being so lonely. But then again, that is charting uncharted space, isn't it? So there's all these kind of different things that go with it. But who knows what they may add in, because I've read some things that say they may put in like other vehicles to explore like planets with and try and expand what you can do with planets. So maybe
even have other advanced civilizations,
So that's just one point. The one worry I have. The second worry I have is that because you're exploring so much, you get to different planets and so on and so forth. Of what I've seen the game up till now, they've added like things that you can mine, materials you can get, and stuff that you have on your ship, and things you can create to survive, like oxygen and so on and so forth, like a suit or something. Now, a game like this tells you to explore, and you're going through the universe and so on and so forth. How it still doesn't have a way to handle like a base of operations. Where do you belong? A sense of belonging is missing, because either you're an explorer, but an explorer actually comes from somewhere. They have a belonging, right? So you have to have a place to call home. Unless if you don't, then you're just a nomad. Because you can't. Then there's no explanation for you having a spaceship. Where did you get it? How did you build it?
Yeah.
How did it just magically appear? It's because if they're trying to make it realistic, a realistic space exploration game, you have to have a good background to it. Like, you can't just exist without having a background story. Like, which planet do you come from? Like, where, like, how does it, like, spaceships don't just appear. They have to have a huge economy behind them, like people who produce parts. Fuel has to be mined out and put into rocket fuel. And that's the other thing. Like, when you're exploring, how do you refuel? How does that work?
Well, I mean,
how's the technology behind
it? Play like FTL, or what's the other one that goes with FT? That's like FTL, where it's like it's more.
I haven't played, but I know it.
Well, there's StarMade.
StarMade, yeah, but there's another one that used to be on my phone. I'm reaching around trying to find my phone, but it's when you have to like go to different planets and sort of you're trying to quest your way home. It's more of like an adventure one rather than you must escape on FTL. And you have to mine and you have to use your drill parts and try and conserve fuel and make it back. And I found that game it's really hard. It was really hard game, but it was really enjoyable for that sense of achievement you got when you made it to somewhere.
Well, there's a really old one. What was it called?
So, that's the golden question.
Yes.
Putt goes to space.
No, there's Urquan Masters is the open source version.
No clue.
Oh boy, I have to look it up. Hold on a sec. Go on.
So but like if you present the story in the sense that you are lost, and if that gives you a reason for why you are lost in this huge universe, and your home is in the center of the universe, that's a really good reason. That's a really good sense of belonging. But the thing is, like, they'll have to really explain why you're lost and how you got lost and how you have so much tech to sustain yourself to get back home.
That's true.
How far advanced in technology can you be to sustain yourself for so long to get back home?
So interested in this game, and I will play it and I will buy it because of where I don't think it's going to be one of these guns they give up on. Like, they've released it, that's it. I hope they continue to develop it because the options are so good for it, like to develop a story or to, because you think, right, they could release a storyline a year from now and nobody's going to like be able to get all the planets or something like that, but they could say you've received a beacon from somewhere, and then it just starts a storyline. Like, it just creates a storyline for something, and you've been questing all this time, and you've been gathering these resources and gathering all these things, and you realize it means very little for this story. There's so much they could do with it.
Yeah, they can play with it, because like it might just happen because it's random. Like, people might not go in a direction at all, and then might miss a complete area of the universe. So they just might create a beacon there to get people get in there, and that's how like maybe people start bumping into each other. They can mess with it. Yep, totally true. They can do that.
I always scares me when you I mean, and it's a nice thing that they're doing this, but you can explore offline, but you just can't record it in the atlas until you come back online, which is okay. That's okay.
Sure.
And
but
I think
you
it's
lose
quite
out on
necessary to
something.
have, and you miss out on discoveries and you miss out on certain things. But it says that the chances of meeting somebody are virtually zero, and that is the bit that scares me, because it means like you could be out there for 40 hours of gameplay and not see anybody, and then you see somebody once, and guaranteed I'm gonna follow that person around for ages because I'm
gonna be so chuffed that I found somebody.
Exactly.
Yeah, it'll be so immense when you find somebody. And the thing is, that's the other thing, like, what if you find the person that's the biggest stick in the whole universe?
Yeah, you're
he's the only person in the universe, so he's also the smallest stick in the whole universe.
But also,
you know what I mean?
like, you never know. Like, what can you do to another player? Can you loot his stuff? Can you kill him? Can you take his ship? Can you give them stuff?
Like, these unanswered questions are really good because it makes you want to, get the game
intrigue
when it comes out. Because, and I think that is sometimes what we miss nowadays, because there's so many leaks and there's so many new heroes coming out in Heroes of Storm, and you know about them before they're even released, and there's new games coming out, but you essentially know the whole game before it's out because of betas and early access. That it's good to have these things.
I like the fact that, like, I'm worried about it because I actually care about that game, I want it to do well. It's a upfront buy, isn't it?
Absolutely agree with you with that.
Yep.
Like, I do care about this game more than I should because I barely know nothing about it.
Yeah. And that worries me. Like, non-information is okay. I mean, I mean, people want to create intrigue, and it's a good selling point for a game. Like, if people want to know the story behind it, or just the intrigue of getting to know something first, that's the biggest draw.
Yeah.
And that might also be another problem. Like, if you're exploring offline, then you find a planet, and then when you log back in, and just by happenstance, somebody else discovered it before you, so they got to name it. So your Atlas upload doesn't count.
Like you didn't upload your Atlas in time or something?
Yeah, because like you were exploring offline, and so you just discovered it. And then when you got online, you discover that somebody's already been there, and there's already a name for that planet on the Atlas.
Oh, and so also he stole your ship and all your shit.
Oh, no. Like, if you're offline, you never were there in the real world.
Oh, I see.
So here's the thing. So there's going to be a sync issue. There's going to be a synchronization issue. But that's something for the technical side to deal with, the developers. But on the player side, he missed out on two things. The player missed out on actually naming somebody something that he could have because he wasn't playing online. And the other thing, he actually missed an actual encounter that is so rare in that game. He actually missed meeting somebody else.
Well, the solution to that problem is to be always playing online 24/7.
Online, yeah. Yeah. But like allowing offline play creates that problem. So I don't know how they're going to deal with it.
Well, you can deal with it the way that Elite Dangerous deals with it.
Oh.
Well, you can't play Elite Dangerous offline. You can play solo. Which means that you're playing by yourself. There's no other players in the entire universe, but it still updates the universe.
That works really well.
Yep.
Sure.
But you can't play it if you don't have internet connection.
I mean, at the same time, yeah. So, but basically, it's always online then. Yeah. Basically, that's the problem. I'm saying that the problem is that they're allowing the offline mode.
Right.
And that's the problem. So, like, it's not that solving the problem is just not removing the problem. It's just like making it a better instance of the game.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's that.
Cool. I put a link to No Man's Sky in the show notes so you guys can check out the website and stuff. But
cheers, Cheetos. Another upcoming game I'm worried about is Doom.
Doom? The new Doom game?
Oh, that's getting streamed right now on Rooster Teeth. If anybody is.
Yeah, right now as this podcast goes out.
But yeah, right now as this podcast goes out, as you're listening to this, you may have already seen footage for it, which is probably more than we've seen at this moment in time. But again, it's another game that is somebody regurgitating the past, and you hope that it lives up to what the game once was.
It's worked so well.
I'm excited for Doom's return, but at the same time, worried that it won't be doomy enough for me.
Yeah. The thing is, what made the original, like, not the original Doom, the original Doom was gameplay and it was groundbreaking. That's why it's so famous, because it did it so well. But Doom 3 was so good was because it had a brilliant story. It had such a good story. And I mean, the graphics were good for its time, and the monsters and the demons and everything were cool, but it wouldn't have stuck. Like, the Doom 3 is a long game. If you're playing it for the first time, it's a really long game because you have to keep up with the story, read the PDAs, everybody's emails, get the codes. So it was really engaging, and that's what made Doom 3 so good. It was a story and how it encapsulated the player into the surroundings. Not to mention the sound design and what things that you have to keep in mind. And all of that. So that's one of the worries about the new Doom that I have. But the biggest worry is that it's Bethesda releasing it, and it's ID Tech 6. It's a technical problem because they released Wolfenstein: The New Order about 2 years ago, I think it was, or give or take. And that game till this day does not have proper SLI support, and it is an FPS game. It runs really bad if you do not have good hardware, and it's really unnerving for me that they're still using the same family of the engine that they made Wolfenstein in.
Yeah,
and it's a newer one, and if they do not have proper bug fixes. Because when Wolfenstein: The New Order came out, it had problems on the PC. Even on consoles, the frame rate was bad. And Doom is not a franchise you want to fuck with. Like, people have been waiting for this franchise for a long time. Yeah. It is the original trend-setting game for the FPS genre, and you do not want to fuck that up. And if they do not have SLI support at launch, even if they don't have SLI support, if it doesn't run on one card well, from at least the 600 series, you have done something wrong, my friend. That engine should not exist. Like, they could have just as well used the Unreal Engine, and they just didn't, because Unreal Engine 4 runs really well.
Yeah, it does.
It runs really well. I am in the alpha, the open pre-alpha, I think, for Unreal Tournament, which runs on Unreal Engine 4, and in pre-alpha, it runs really well. I mean, it'll use all you have, but it'll push 144 frames on a mobile GPU from the 600 series.
The thing is that Unreal has pretty much dedicated the last 10 years to exclusively making engines. Like, that's what they've done. Like, they haven't made many games, have they? They've just sat down and made engines, and they've done a good job, you know? I mean...
They've done an excellent job on the engine.
Now, if you look at Quake 3 footage today, it still looks good.
It still looks good.
Yeah.
I played Quake 3 off the hat. That was my first FPS after Doom. Like a proper FPS.
The only thing that I would say graphically that is wrong with Doom 3 compared to today's games is the resolution of the textures. That's it. Honestly, it still looks good. Like, if you bumped the resolution up to like the 32-bit, I think you would have a very nice looking game. Do you know what I mean?
It's so good. Yeah. I have Doom the BFG edition on Steam, and I play it now and again. I mean, it's technically halted, but it's like the sound design in that game is absolutely horrendous. It's the sound, the atmosphere the sound creates is beautiful.
Yeah,
that's what scares you.
I would like to say that the Starcraft Nova thingy core has just come out now as well. After we've just talked about Starcraft and things like that, so there's some new missions.
Oh yeah, it just came out.
Interesting to see what they do with that. Obviously, Overwatch we talked a little bit about. I'm so excited for that game. That's the new game that I will be playing a ton of, I think.
Yes, I will definitely be in the beta. Yeah.
Yeah.
The beta is May 5th for people who haven't pre-ordered.
I think.
For people who have.
What else? What else have I been playing? I've played a ton of Subnautica, and they've just gone through some more updates and things like that. So I'll be interested when that finally gets released, what that game will look like.
I'm excited for Subnautica, but my PC can't handle it yet.
Yeah, it's tough. It does. My PC does run it great, and it's phenomenal, but they're still optimizing it and dealing with a few certain issues that are coming up. And I think once that game gets really released, oh man, it's going to be so good because I just love it. I absolutely love the way it plays.
I do kind of feel like there's not much to do in Subnautica right now.
Nah, once you've done it, you've done it, and unfortunately that's it. But that is the purpose of a beta and early access. And once they add in more story and more different bits, and you know, from when I started playing it, which was almost when Sip started playing it, because I saw it and I was like, yeah, definitely have to get a go at this.
Yeah.
They've changed so much. They've changed so much already, and I think that speaks volumes in itself. So.
Well, even Sips, who is famous for being very long-winded with his series, he was only able to push like 14 episodes of it. And that's pretty.
14, and then 23, I think, was his other one. When they added more to the game. I think it's a gorgeous game. It's great fun to play. It adds a whole new element to a survival game because you have to go constantly worrying about air and monsters of the deep, and it's just good fun. It's just enjoyable, and it's one of these games. Rarely I find games that I like to play and spend hours in on my own. But it's so atmospheric and gorgeous that it's really nice to just chuck on some music and just play the game. And it's just something about that game that's like that, and it's hard to play. And it's hard to play for a short amount of time.
Yeah. I just want to say I love the Cyclops, but it really just needs more work. The whole game kind of just needs more work, you know?
It's just a bit clunky. It's just that all of it's a
That's
bit clunky.
That's the point, though, isn't it?
Yeah. What else? Anything else really games wise that I mean, obviously, being a massive Warhammer 40k nerd, I am excited for Gothic Armada as well. I think that's going to
Ooh.
be a really fun game. I'm interested to see how it develops going forward because they've got some paid DLC they've already talked about, which is using the Space Marines, which, if you're like me, then you feel like you shouldn't have to pay for Space Marines because they're inherently why you're buying the game.
Putting the cart a little bit ahead of the horse as well, aren't they?
Yeah, a little bit. And I'm looking forward to playing that game a little bit, and just because I love the lore and the whole essence behind it, because it's part of Abaddon's. Like I can't remember which Black Crusade it is, but it's during one of them. And so I think it's gonna be a good fun game. I don't know how many hours I'll put into it, whether it'll get the same amount of gameplay as I think it will, but
even if it's a bad game, you'll still play
even
it.
if it's a bad
Probably
game, I
enjoy
enjoy
it
the universe that it's set in. Yeah, definitely. But I don't like the fact that the reason why you read most of the books and 90% of the content about the Black Library is about Space Marines, and they're the one chapter you actually have to pay for.
Yeah.
But it is of course, a way to make the monies.
The monies.
I think that's what all this comes down to, really. Unfortunately.
Yeah, straight cash.
Yeah, I mean, with the exclusion of No Man's Sky so far that we've seen anyway, I think a lot of these games, the reason that they exist is just to make money. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate.
If it's a long-running franchise, they just want to run it into the ground until it stops making them money, and then they find a new one.
Yeah.